Welcome to the broadcast, my fruits. I hope you've had an absolutely divine couple of weeks over the festive season. And I've got to tell you, it's been divine, not even looking at the royal family. Especially the ex-royals in Montecito. It's been divine, not even thinking about them for a couple of weeks. It really has. So, don't expect anything highfalutin from me today, my dears. I'm just easing myself back into a bit of broadcasting with a rambly sort of chinwag and have a quick catch-up with you all. But that's all I can offer, I'm afraid, today, my loves. Did you enjoy the King's Christmas message? And by the way, I see this bandied about as the King's speech or the Queen's speech. No, the speech is during the opening of Parliament, for the state. This is the broadcast, or message, if you must. But it was very well received, wasn't it? And it was a ratings hit over here. More people tuned in to see Charlie Boy than they did the late Queen on her last broadcast. But obviously they're interested to see how the new monarch's going to do things. Well, it wasn't especially different from the way that the Queen did things. He broadcast from the choir at St George's Chapel, didn't he? I didn't care to see him stand, I have to say. I think there's more authority in sitting. Doesn't have to be perched on a throne, although why not? That'd be quite novel, wouldn't it? Yes, do it on the throne, my loves. And I'm not talking about the lavatory. On the throne or at a desk is rather nice. I know it's traditional, but that's what I prefer. But anyway, we saw him standing. And of course, he was extremely competent, as he always is. Most people seem to love it. I noticed historian David Starkey loathed it. And he did have some points. It depends on your point of view, but he wasn't keen. And he thinks that the king has to work harder. And also, be wary of the danger of falling into various woke traps that we all know about so very well. But it was well received. He spoke well. But do you know what? He did not speak as well as William. Because I looked at some of the highlights from Kate's carol service and he read with aplomb. William got it so right during this carol service, and it was poignant in the way that it was paired with that pianist tinkling the ivories. Alexis, wasn't he? Alexis French. I thought that was very nice. I didn't care for a lot of the carol service simply because it's not my taste, but I thought it was definitely curated for the masses, and that's what it's about, appeasing the masses. But some of the talent wasn't that talented, in my opinion. And Sporty Spice, for example, I mean, she is a talented pop star and can do very good things, but I thought she sounded absolutely dreadful next to that classically trained singer that was there. It just wasn't the right piece for her voice, but I'm sure it pleased a lot of people that she was there, and it was in the spirit of the occasion, so that's absolutely fine. But, she sounded like some albatross dying a death, if I'm honest. And poor old Charlie Boy was sitting right next to her, and I bet he was just wishing that he had a pair of earplugs on him. But, you get in the spirit of the occasion, don't you? It was the harmony as well that she did. It was such an unsophisticated harmony. You've got to put that down to the arrangers and the musical directors. The thing that was a stroke of wonder and that thoroughly impressed me was Prince George's skills as an artist. That wonderful watercolour illustration of a stag, wasn't it? And I criticised the Christmas card that they sent out, the Waleses this year, because I'm fed up of seeing sunny scenes on their Christmas cards. It's all very well and good if you live in Australia, but here in the kingdom, we like a snowy, wintry scene for Christmas. And, they could have done away with the photograph and just put that out, put George's work out on the Christmas card. I think that would have been a lot more merrymaking. But wasn't it wonderful? Wonderful work for the young artist. Quite jealous of his talent there with the pen. Or the brush. Excuse me, dear. Quite jealous of his talent. With the little heart-shaped nose of the stag and a mound of snow on top. Quite charming, quite whimsical. Well done, George. Did any of you trot down to greet the royal family at Sandringham? Be fun to hear from you if you did. But they put on a wonderfully regal show and looked absolutely beautiful, all of them. They really did. Queen Camilla. I mean, I've always been a fan of the gal. I just always have. But she astounds me with every month, more and more. How in her element she is, how in her stride, and how her reluctance to take such a role, if that's the right word, or her lack of ambition, to put it a better way, somebody who never in a million years would have even fantasized about being a princess, I doubt, let alone falling into the role of queen. It was never her jurisdiction, my dear, but she'd taken to it like a duck to water. And not only that, she looks the part, doesn't she, in that beautiful blue outfit there, with this wonderful feathery affair on top. I don't know, I mean, Queen Mary would be smiling from the rainbows and the clouds up there, wouldn't she? Think, oh, well, the monarchy's obviously in safe hands with with the most unlikely heroine of the royal family. Camilla looks the part, acts the part, she is the part of our queen. And I couldn't feel any prouder of her, really. She is a complete natural. And they all seem to be coordinating particularly well lately, don't they? We had it at the carol service in their burgundies and creams, and this time they were all sort of muted, earthy affairs. And as we all know, Meghan made such a meal going on about the fact that she never wanted to clash anyone, which is why she always wanted to wear neutrals and whites and camels and beige so that she didn't stand out because everyone else wore bright colours. Well, as we all know, that's been contested in many ways, but the most obvious way is surely that if you want to stand out, then you do the one thing that is different from what everybody else is doing. So if she didn't want to stand out, then she could have just worn bright colours like everyone else, couldn't she? It seems like a bit of a twisted logic, but that's the Harkles for you, isn't it, my lovers? That's the Harkles for you. But somebody who was chic in neutrals and looked absolutely lovely was Sophie. Absolutely stunning she was. And even the young ones are so stylish and quite beguiling and obvious crowd pleasers. Little Louis running about all over the place in his knee-high socks. And little Lottie, you know, she put so many people in mind of the late Queen, but she very much puts me in mind of Anne on that expression and that countenance, which could only be a good thing, can't it? Because Prince George will need that stout support as he goes through the seasons. Did you see that the design for new banknotes has been released featuring King Charles's mug? Due to come out in circulation in 2024, I think, so not for a while. But it was interesting to see, wasn't it? And very peculiar for those of us who have never seen anything but the Queen on a banknote. Remember that she was the first monarch to appear on notes. It was always coinage, 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 since the 8th century. He becomes the first king to appear on notes and the second monarch to do that. And he looks handsome. I think he looks handsome on the notes, but haunted. You can see something haunted in his eyes. Might just be me, but I thought handsome, but haunted. And the Royal Mint have released its first, well, it's what's known as the annual set, but it's a collection of commemorative coins, their first to feature King Charles III. And as well as his own effigy on all of them, it celebrates the NHS, the Windrush generation, and the King's impending 75th birthday, and also the life and work of J.R.R. Tolkien. But I had a comment here from one of you about the Harkles, and the reason that I want to address it is because I also want to talk about Dame Vivienne Westwood, who died yesterday. And as part of the response to your comment, Isla dear, it's going to be married in with the subject of Vivienne Westwood and her relationship with monarchy, which is very multi-textured. We're talking here about the architect, or one of the architects, of punk, the hugely influential movement of the mid to late 70s, in tandem with a few other creatives, such as Malcolm McLaren, who she was in a relationship with during that sort of period. British punk has a slightly different flavour to that of American punk. One of my favourite bands to emerge from that scene was Blondie, who weren't the most pure punk of that scene, but emerged from it and were the most glittering, in my personal taste, my personal opinion, from that scene. But over here, the punk scene had such an impact on British music and culture and art. It was all married in together and influenced the fabric of this nation and our society. That's why so many people today are lamenting her loss and feeling it very keenly. She was an important part of this nation. She was anti-establishment, anti-monarchy, but as we are to find in a moment, that didn't stop her absolutely adoring the Queen and Charles. And this is that sort of mixture of multifaceted ideas and emotions that royalty can bring out in people. And I'll start with this viewer's comment, this fruit, who said, I hear the king extended an invitation to the Harkles to come to the coronation. That's so bad. That tells Markle she won and can say anything she wants about the royals without fear of reprisal. I'm not quite as fearful as you. I don't quite share your concerns. And I want to explain why by discussing Dame Vivienne. You know, I first met Vivienne Westwood, and I think I might have recounted this story to you before. I can't remember. I've got a feeling that I did. But I first met... Well, actually, I used to see her because I lived in Clapham for a time, or Clam, as we'd call it. I'd see her cycling around, going about her daily life on her bicycle, and she would always be dressed to the hilt in refineries. I can remember a large, sort of petticoated tartan number, and she'd be impossibly perched on this very elegant vintage black bicycle with the shopping basket on the front. Like she'd just cycled out of a picture, and she always looked wonderful. But then, as I was walking along the back streets of Marylebone, I saw her coming towards me, and she looked like an ethereal alien. And she was wearing, this is why I've got it today, this graphic, she was going through the phase of wearing graphic red eyeliner across the lids, a little bit like this, but I can't quite remember. I'll try and Google some images of the look. But she had that, she had a shock of white hair, and this being came towards me. And this is no word of a lie. As she approached me, I got down on my knee, I offered a hand to her, which she gave me, and I kissed it. And I can't remember off the top of my head what I came out with. You know, I look back and cringe a bit with embarrassment. But I thought she must get sick of people just fawning over her in the usual way, so I wanted to do it with a bit of class, and I knew that she enjoyed romance and a bit of drama, so I thought I would give her a bit of drama, and that is the way that I greeted her. And I mean, apart from the fact that she looked really rather petrified, she went on to introduce me to the Wallace collection, which was nearby in Marylebone, and I think she had a great association with the Wallace collection, actually, which is a fabulous place to visit if you ever come to London. It's close to Manchester Square, where I worked for a while, and it's a part of town that I know very well. Anyway, she gave me a love for that. But what I thought was so very relevant to this, and Vivienne Westwood, in relation to your comment, and in relation to your comment about the Harkles being invited to the coronation as if nothing's happened, as if they can say what they want, it put me in mind of Vivienne Westwood, because she built her career. She built her career in imagery involving the monarchy. You know, all of the sort of... Remember, Malcolm McLaren managed the band the Sex Pistols with their famous God Save the Queen single, Anarchy in the UK, all the rest of it. It was all about anarchy. It was all about imagery, quite graphic imagery of the Queen's mouth being stapled shut and with safety pins and swastikas over the eyes. Graphic imagery, anti-establishment, anti-monarchy. She defaced the Queen's image and dragged it through the mud, built a brand on that. So you'd think that she wouldn't particularly be in the Queen's favour, wouldn't you? Well, fast forward a few years and she's awarded the OBE for her services to fashion, or whatever it is. Fast forward a few more years and she becomes a dame. She is awarded a damehood. And as you see in many pictures of her with the Queen, they are full of fun, full of respect, full of humour. I mean, we all know that famously, well, you may not know this, but when she collected her honours, I should say, rather than awards, when she collected her honours, she didn't wear any knickers. And she also showed everybody. I mean, I won't be able to flash up a picture of it here, but she came out from her meeting with the Queen and showed the entire world what was under her, well, knickerbocker glory, my dear, except she wasn't wearing any knickerbockers and it was all glory, if you could call it such a thing. Well, she showed the world her glory. And she also showed the world at that juncture that perhaps there was a little bit of conflict going on inside her, because as much as she or her work appeared to disparage the traditions of royalty, as the world of punk itself was about the antithesis of royalty, or appeared to be at the time, because now you see a lot of those pioneers of punk with their nose well and truly implanted into the buttocks of establishment and commercialism in various ways. But I won't go down that avenue. You see it everywhere, though. But what it illustrates to me so very vividly is the beauty of monarchy, because you see the monarchy's willingness to suspend derision or castigation and view these goings on with a good dose of humour, to allow irreverence, to allow that freedom, be it creative freedom, political freedom. You could be as irreverent as you want within the confines of the law. It doesn't mean that you'll be excluded from being celebrated by that very institution that you have denigrated in a certain way. Or maybe you weren't really denigrating it. Maybe you were just using it as a tool to make some sort of rock and roll rebellious point, whether profound or shallow or somewhere in the middle. And as well as having what seems to be a rather guilty pleasure for the Queen, as Vivienne did, she was enraptured by Charles, Prince Charles as he was at the time. She actually released a collection, the Autumn-Winter collection 2015, with his face emblazoned on many of her designs. And she actually said in an interview, "I've been a big fan of Prince Charles for a long time, and I've spoken to him and even tried to help him sometimes with getting support for his projects to save the rainforests. He invited me to come and see him at Highgrove. I've had quite long chats with Prince Charles. I think he's absolutely wonderful. He's a visionary. Right back in the 1970s, as a young man, he realised he had to live in harmony with the earth, and all his charities have made such a difference. They've really helped people. They're very practical and solid things. They build communities, support people. It really works on a very human way, all his charities. We would have a wonderful world if he had ruled it in all that time." So I don't know if that was a slight dig towards the late Queen, suggesting that she wasn't quite so involved in these sort of things. And we all know that not everybody loves Prince Charles's views, but a lot of people do. And Vivienne was one of those, including his views on climate change. And moreover, I think just his interest in the environment. So what I'm trying to get at, in a very roundabout way, I grant you, what I'm trying to get at, when you say that it's so bad they were invited, it tells Markle she won and she can say anything about the royals without fear of reprisal. Well, maybe she can say anything about the royals without fear of reprisal, just like Dame Vivienne did. That she could deface the Queen's face, that she could build a career on disparaging that institution. All this kind of rock and roll rebellious nonsense on stilts that's also really rather fabulous in its own way. And the Queen and the royal family and the institution itself can look on with a wry smile, take it all in their stride and say, whatever your feelings are, we see your talent, we recognise you, we understand that you're allowed an independent voice, and it's a precious voice, and this country appreciates it and appreciates what you do for this country. Might not be our cup of tea entirely, maybe it is for a few of us, but we like the character. This is the kind of country that encourages a bit of character, and you don't have to meet certain criteria. The thought police aren't going to chuck you in some kind of thought cell for having the wrong opinion or thought. We celebrate you. We will, even to the point of honouring you with the damehood, if you'll accept it, which she did. Do you see the point that I'm trying to get? Who looks like the bigger person there? Who looks like they won, as you put it? You say that tells Markle she won. Does it really? Does it really? Is it really that base? Or, not to say your comment is base, my dear, but your understanding, is it really as 2D as that, or is there something else going on another level, which says actually the king, the institutional, just like the late Queen did, will look to Christian values first and foremost as a representative of the divine, which encourages forgiveness and compassion and a show of familial unity. That is going to appear one way to the world, whereas on the other side of the pond we've got the Harkelinas, who I know have their great fans, but to many people also look like they're just tying themselves into knot after knot after knot, with their inward-looking, navel-gazing, poor me attitude to life. And to a mature mind, I would hedge my bets that it ain't a good look. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to catching up with you in the next broadcast, as ever. And an extra special thanks to those of you who left a Christmas tip in my tip jar over the last few weeks. You are very kind. It's very much appreciated. And I can't lie, I might have treated myself to 1 or 2 mulled wines. What can I tell you? It's been cold. One needs to warm up, doesn't one? And a mulled wine helps. It helps do the job, in this cost of living crisis where one doesn't dare turn on a radiator. One has to get warm and cosy however one can, and a mulled wine is a very good way of doing it, so I thank you most sincerely. I'll see you next time. Stay royal. Toodle pip.